Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram, Eric Matthey, Nick Davis, who's better known as the 120th off of the YouTubes. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Eric.
Simon, we can see you.
Yes. And hello, Nick.
Hello, Simon.
Great to have all three of you here, and especially great to have you here, Nick. It's oh dear, you know what? I've lost it already. I'm going to start this again.
Well done.
No! This is why he normally gives it to me or
This
Eric.
is you're rolling. We're live.
And that, actually, that's
You got his name right.
That's the first time. I tell you what the problem is. Nick's a TV professional.
Why don't you get him to introduce the show?
Yeah, but this is the thing, and you're going to find out
in front of the camera though.
Yeah. But you're involved in TV. That makes you. It's in the same way as I used to be a project manager and property manager for a chain of beauty salons, which makes me a beauty professional once in my life.
Obviously, that's what I think every time I see you, Simon.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you want advice on waxing, the difference between a Brazilian and a Hollywood,
I do. I've been wondering which I should get.
We got onto the topic of anal bleaching once, didn't we? Or was that another podcast?
We did talk about it.
We're keeping this take. We're not redoing this at all. Let's roll.
No.
Who was a guest when we were talking about anal bleaching?
Yeah.
I can't honestly remember.
Was it me?
No, I think you. No.
No.
I don't think that made the cut. I'm pretty sure it didn't.
Oh,
I mean, but the topic of bleaching does roll into the whole zebra dry plate. Like, I was saying that Nick was just doing.
Yes, you got to make it.
Bleaching is more relevant
lighter
than waxing for sure.
Yeah, make the whites lighter with a bit
You
of
wax it
anal
when
bleaching.
it's done.
I can see where this podcast is going to go quite soon.
A bit of bleaching of the aperture.
Yeah, I can see this. Okay.
Bleaching of my eyes.
Let's try this again.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
Pack her up, Simon.
Yeah. No. Right. Oh, by the way, how long have you got, Nick?
As long as it takes.
Okay. I mean,
we may get a visit from the kids at some point, but
yeah.
I have to leave for work.
It won't be the last first one.
I have to leave for work at 5, so I need to be finished before that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as your kids don't start swearing up a storm, we got a little bit of trouble for that one.
Yeah, they will. You wait, or I'll start swearing at the kids. That'll be the problem.
All right, even better.
They love it. It's all they listen to.
Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram, Eric Matthey, Nick Davis, better known as the 120th off of the YouTubes. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Simon.
Hello, Eric.
Simon.
There was delay there. It's been about 6 weeks since we've done this now, so you're a little bit rusty there. And hello, Nick.
Hello, Simon.
Right, it's been great to be back. As you said, we've been away for 6 weeks or so. So it's we took August off. We did 2 podcasts, I think, in July, and we just didn't do August at all. We needed a break after exhausting. So we're back now, and we're back with a guest. And as I've already said, we've got Nick with us, who's better known from his YouTube channel, the 120th. And I've wanted to get Nick on for quite a while, and then in particularly now Nick as the name of his YouTube channel might give a clue there. He's a bit of a 120 camera guy, but to be fair, I don't know if he's going to be wondering whether that name is actually pigeonholed or not. But he does stuff on 35mm 120, and more to the point, he's been doing quite a bit of large formats of late. And
the channel is increasingly inaccurately named for sure.
Yeah. So talking about those, I'll rewind a little bit. I actually met Nick last year at the Analog Spotlight, which was in Worcester, and
Worcester.
Worcester.
Your guys'
You would know it as Worcester.
Yes, Worcester. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you for the translation, Nick. I appreciate that.
Sorry, no problem.
Okay, please continue.
Do you get the sauce in America, Eric?
Yeah.
Worcester, what do you call it? Do you call it Worcester
sauce?
Worcester sauce.
He's just doing that for you. He's saying Worcestershire.
That's it. That's got to be the way to say it, surely.
Yeah. Like aluminium. I mean, we shouldn't even go there. We'll spend the rest of the entire time making fun of.
You've been watching my videos.
Lour instead of color, like color. Anyway, you'll be fancy with your names. It's fine.
I've got to say, I know I'm halfway through this introduction, which has gone horribly wrong already. Which is the reason why I tend not to do introductions.
Yeah. Well, you've only had 4 false starts, Simon. Why don't you just rewind and do a 5th?
No, we're not doing this again. No, this is only my second time. This is the second time out. This is. But you just meant with Eric just mentioned aluminum or aluminium, whichever. We actually got a sneak preview of Nick's latest video, which has not come out. Although chances are, by the time this podcast goes live, it will have gone out. And Nick has used the most remarkable pronunciation of that word I think I've ever heard. And he's managed to bridge the gap between aluminum and aluminium all in one go. And I cannot hope to. And I don't know if Nick is capable of actually repeating the pronunciation he came up with.
I don't know. What did I say? I don't remember now. I have to go back and check the video. Aluminium. Aluminium.
Something like that. Yeah, I was thinking, oh, that's cool.
I normally do both because my viewers, there's a large proportion of them are from the States. And so I do have to make a bit of an effort to give all weights and measures in kilos and pounds. And if I ever say aluminum or aluminium, I have to then say aluminum to make sure that you guys understand. I don't want to lose everyone, It's an extra letter.
I'm certain that there are people out there who are just like,
yeah, that's it.
Aluminium.
I've never heard of it. I don't know what he's talking about.
What is this crap?
Yeah, probably.
Kilograms.
So back onto that introduction.
Where were you then, Simon?
I have no idea where I was anymore. So I think on that basis, I think I've come to the end of the introduction, and let's have a chat to Nick, who you've already heard several times now, which is good. And so Nick, I think we'll do the tried and tested. Because nobody's really come up with a better way of doing this. To say, well, who are you, Nick, and how did you get here? All that kind of stuff, and then we'll punctuate that with questions to put you off.
You know what? That's a very difficult question. I don't know what I'm doing here, Simon. Between you and I, all the other guests that you have on this podcast are kind of inspiring in their endeavors and in their talent and in their vast experience. So yeah, not too sure where I fit in there because I have none of those. I am just
now.
No, I don't think. I mean, that's not how I position myself on the channel, and it's not how I am. And basically, that my YouTube channel is just me doing stuff, trying stuff, kind of trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And I know that I get a lot of good feedback, which is nice. And a lot of people do say that they find, watching me kind of fumbling my way through large format and other photography things, they do find it, it encourages. I want to say inspire, that's the wrong word, because I think, when you're inspired by somebody, you kind of look up to them and think, oh, but at least watching me screw stuff up makes other people think they can do it. So that's kind of,
with you.
Yeah.
Actually, that reminds me. That reminds me of something I did actually want to say, because your videos, they are you come across as a very sensible, level-headed guy, but quite clearly
that's the editing.
Yeah. That's
the TV professional coming to the fore.
Exactly.
But you get a new piece of equipment, whatever that might be, and before you've really understood what it is that you've got, you go out and go out for some kind of shoot, where there's this pressure on you in some kind of way, and you've only got a vague idea actually what the buttons do on the camera or how it works. And I love that, because it's the enthusiasm to actually get out there and just do something with it, rather than have something that sits on the shelf and you're a bit scared of it, or you're going to take forever to learn it at the exclusion of everything else. You just get out there and you just do something with it, and I love that.
So interesting. I wish I had a bit more of the other side of the personality. I wish I did prepare things a little better. But I do also have had experiences like that, where the stuff does sit on the shelf, and you do kind of start to get a bit scared of it, so my way of thinking, and you would have seen this in this last video where I did a couple of tests of this of the tintype stuff, and I hadn't got it right yet, but you can test and you can carry on, and you can wait forever until you believe you're ready, or just go and get it done and learn by doing. And so that's always been my philosophy, and I do. I'm sure it's not the right philosophy for a YouTube channel. I'm sure that I'd have more viewers and all the rest of it if I was a bit more competent, but whatever.
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, there's something to be said, both as a process, I think, and also from like the enjoyment of watching someone of doing it, and also watching somebody just like work their way through it, because that's how we all do it in the end, regardless of how fucking organized you aren't. Simon's first bleep of the podcast, by the way, of this episode, is that everybody has to go through that process, right? Everybody has to figure it out, and whether or not they do it in organized fashion or unorganized fashion, there's a value, I think, in showing that process, even if it's not even if I'm watching it and I'm super organized, which I'm obviously not, but I am role playing a highly organized person, not wondering how to tackle a thing. Seeing somebody work through it in an unorganized fashion still helps me see what those steps are and triggers thought processes that, like, how do I figure this out? I've never understood the value. Like, I've seen every once in a while somebody like go and they don't show the process they go through or whatever. It's sort of like magically, like, boop.
Yeah,
it's there.
Perfect. Well, perfection.
That. Like, what were the steps? That didn't help me. Or they'll verbalize it, but they don't show it, and like that doesn't help me.
And that's kind of my thinking behind what I do, or the videos that I put out is certainly, especially like film photography and what you might call the kind of progressive steps through film photography of medium format, large format, whichever, whatever comes next, can seem really daunting. And it is niche, and you do have these kind of small online communities, which themselves for me were quite daunting. So the kind of thinking behind what I'm doing and the reasoning for me starting doing it was demystifying a little bit and almost kind of publicly making a tit of myself so that other people, feel more comfortable getting into it. And I do get slagged off. I get some rude comments. I don't care. It's fine. Whatever. Yeah, well, this is it.
Some people just need to feel better about themselves,
Yeah, sure. But I think that's what it's better for all of us if photography, large format photography, film photography grows, right? The more people that do it, the fewer Fuji films will pack up making film, and the fewer companies will go out of business. Film prices will come down. The more it grows, the better it gets for everyone, right? And so demystifying and decleaking it, I think, is sort of a bit of a mission of mine.
You're all pausing very politely so I can ask a question.
You put your hand up, mate.
I know.
Simon, actually,
Simon,
I just heard the sound and I was like, what?
What it was?
It's Andrew at the door.
Yeah.
So, are you a newcomer to film photography, Nick, or is it something that you've always done? Was it a childhood thing, parents, family?
It was childhood thing. I have the stereotypical story of when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Every time I pulled a chicken wishbone, I would wish for a real camera. And my dad had a couple of cameras I obviously wasn't allowed to touch, and And then got into I had a camera from a relatively early age, and then did at school there was a darkroom, GCSE, all that sort of stuff. Then kind of turned my back on it a little bit, went digital, same as everybody else, and then came back to it. But that was all 35mm up until that point. So I didn't find my way to medium format until maybe like 5-6 years ago. And that was, in fact, as almost a rebellion against the fact that I couldn't afford medium format digital cameras. I was looking at, Hasselblads and stuff like that 4 or 5 years ago, before Fuji started bringing out their GXs and whatever. And I was like, well, I want more resolution, but I can't get it like this. And then you start looking around and realize that, in fact, you can get all the resolution you want through film. And obviously then, your scanning process does affect what it eventually looks like in a digital sense. And then obviously just started, got lost in it, started down that rabbit hole and disappeared and never looked back.
I think
it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that like you can buy an old used 120 camera and like a $10 roll of film for less than like what the digitals are for a long time. Like you can shoot a lot of damn film and get a nice kit for $5,000.
Absolutely. And $5,000 won't even get you. Will it get you a GX50? Is it GX50? What are the
GFX 50?
GFX 50. Yeah, I don't know how much they are new. Certainly the
you can definitely get them used for that. I mean, I got my R brand new for $3,000, but they were like blowing them out for a 30% like rebate because nobody liked that model, which is fine with
either
me.
way. And it's not true medium format, is it though? The sensor is not actually.
It's still smaller than 645.
Right.
It's like somewhere between 645 and 35mm.
This is the thing
which makes it interesting choosing lenses.
You can disappear up your own arsehole a little bit with the with sensor sizes and resolution and all this sort of stuff, can't you? And it's all a bit meaningless eventually. And I think that was a huge appeal of coming back to film and shooting medium format film, was that you can shake off some of the marketing hype. So, like if you're looking into digital cameras and you're looking to decide which one you're going to buy, unless you are actually a camera engineer who fully understands, the how a sensor is built and how each pixel of a sensor, then it's all just bollocks, isn't it? It's all a load of rubbish, and you're just being sold to. Whereas you come back to film and it's simpler and it makes sense, and it kind of is what it is, does what it says on the tin. Yeah, exactly. And most people aren't going to print at all. I know, right? Exactly.
So unless and talking about digital, so unless you're like actually concerned about printing 1620 or something massive, like Micro Four Thirds will print beautiful 8x10 prints, and they all look great on screen. So who really gives a crap about the size of the sensor, unless you are doing this for a living or you have magazine contracts or do prints? Like Micro Four Thirds
even then though, technically, I mean, obviously the sensor size versus lens and things like that, it does make a difference.
But that's the same thing. Like when you're playing with the 4x5, I just saw you're like doing different brass lenses in one of your videos. Like that plays into it too, though. I just taught a class on modifying old lenses onto new modern cameras, and I had to cover the topic of image circle. So like if you take an old brass lens that is great for 5x7, then you put it on your 4x5, it becomes effectively almost characterless because the image circle is so much smaller and everything's just fucking sharp everywhere. Right. So if you want some character out of an old brass lens on your 4x5, you can't use an 8x10 lens or even a 5x7 lens because you're reducing the image circle so much. You're like taking the very best part of that lens, which is fabulous. Like you can get, if you get a 5x7 brass lens and put it on a 4x5, you'll get a lens that's sharp corner to corner, absolutely everywhere, wide open, as good as any modern lens, period. But all that character you're hoping to get, if you're hoping to get character, kind of goes away because character lives at the edges. So, it gets kind of it's always interesting, but it gets kind of interesting when you're choosing those old lenses for your large format. You need something that's big enough to cover the image, but not so big that you lose all of its character.
It's interesting. It's a point that I didn't bring up when I was going through those antique lenses, but you're dead right, of course. And I think that some of the lenses, now that you're talking about some of the lenses that I liked less, for that exact reason, is that they were designed for bigger cameras, for larger film sizes. And therefore on 4x5, you're essentially just getting that tiny little sample right in the middle of the lens, which is just too good. It's too clean and crisp.
Perfect.
I want that.
Yeah. Like there's no, like you get that lens separation on the edges, and people are like, oh no, the balsam's going, but like no, that's character. Those old brass lenses, every single one's different. Even if you can get 4 of them that are exactly the same, because they've aged differently. Someone's fucked up the front of this one with like Simon's second bleed for me. I keep track. Someone screwed up. There you go, Simon. Like one because they cleaned it too vigorously with the wrong chemical, right? And another one's separating, and another one's got a little bit of like schmutz on the inside, whatever. But anyways, Andrew had a question, and I'm putting him to sleep. So Andrew, I interrupted you rudely.
I have no idea what I was going to say now. It was ages ago.
I know.
Is this the worst possible chat for you, Andrew? This is like full-on gear chat. We literally nothing else. I didn't want to talk about photos. I don't want to talk about results, just lenses. Let's just talk about lenses.
I don't mind it. It gives me an opportunity to doze off.
Go get a cuppa.
In your recent video, which may or may not have aired,
it will. It's going up tonight, so it will be on.
So
by the time this goes out.
You'd gone out and bought a packet of dry plates, but tin types, which I had no idea were available. So thank you.
Neither did I.
Thank you for that. I mean, I did buy a box of Jay Lane's dry plates, and I think Jason is hoping to restart production if he hasn't already. I know there's some. Did he move house or something happened, didn't it?
He did. It's been a long time now, hasn't it? I watched his his website for updates
right.
Yeah, he just signed a lease on a space for production.
So Mr. Lost Light Art YouTube man, maker of zebra or zebra plates, perhaps we should say, to keep.
No, we shouldn't.
If we're going transatlantic, aluminum and zebra. Yeah.
No, we'll say zebra then. I liked your comment right at the beginning. So you said something like, "I've never poured a wet plate glass, and I've seen people do it." Simon hasn't either, I don't think. Me and Simon, if you listen back to the video, the recording we did with Dave Shrimpton.
Yeah.
So I poured exactly one plate and got kind of enthusiastic. But like you, I've not been enthusiastic enough to tip me over the edge, which I know is going to be an expensive and time-consuming rabbit hole. And I've neither got the spare cash nor the time to dive into that particular rabbit hole. So I think the availability of someone like Jason and Mr. Zebra, and you'll forgive me for not remembering what his name is, but you'll tell me in a minute.
It's NEJC, and I have no idea.
Yeah, well, that's just a silly name, and no one has a name full of consonants, do they? So we'll call him Mr.
Now
Zebra.
we have to have him on. But I'm just
and so I like the idea of just being able to go and buy a dry plate or a tin type or a glass plate. And play with it. And when I remember talking to Dave Shrimpton when we were there, and he was, I think we were coating onto aluminium, weren't we, Simon?
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
So that would have been turned into a tin type, but historically, that would have been like black backing, I think, wouldn't it? And I'm just sort of floundering a bit here. Black, and that would have made the sort of negative image that's formed sort of positive. Because then you've got the light areas of the negatives. So I read in my detailed research for this show that you'd end up with a fairly thin negative in the emulsion with the black backing, so that the shadow areas, which of course will be the lightest, will almost turn black because of the black backing, and the highlights take on a sort of grey colour, which gives an overall sort of dull-looking positive. And at the end of the video, Nick, you said, I don't know if it's supposed to look like this, because it was kind of, there was some weird stuff going on in the highlights as well. It was almost like solarized. It looked,
exactly. It looked solarized to me.
Yeah, but I did like it. and I didn't know it, and I thought, well, yeah, it's not a lot of. We're so used to sort of in-your-face contrast images in many cases, at the expense often of tonality, But I did read that tin pipes were known for their sort of dullness, and they didn't fare well against daguerreotypes in their sort of brilliance.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I was mentioning this to Simon. I can't remember where we were chatting, Simon, yesterday, and then Simon was almost quite offended that one would attempt to describe this as a tin type, as because a wet plate is a wet plate, and I don't know how the chemistry compares with actual wet plate collodion, or I think what Mr. Zebra, if we're going to call him that, has done is, I'm pretty sure it's just a standard photo speed emulsion, but using this ammonium thiocyanate additive to the Kodak HC110 when developing, causing white deposits to form. I think that is what he said on one of his videos explaining how this works. So, but yeah, my big thing was knowing whether or not, I don't know what a wet plate, once it's finished and dried and varnished, I'd have no idea what one looks like to hold in your hand. It's very different because, like, as you saw in that video, if you put it on a copy stand, you can make it look great. But you're holding your hand, and it actually doesn't look too bad there. But it's pretty unimpressive, if I'm honest. But then I don't know what a wet plate, proper wet plate collodion plate.
I guess this is why going on, going to a session with someone like Dave, so you go with someone who can make some, really nice plates, and then you've got a sort of point of reference in your head, haven't you?
I think that's it. I think Guy Bellingham is just down the road from me, so he's somebody whose door I may knock on at some point in the near future.
You're gonna end up like at the business end of a giant brass lens, like a tunnel of woods with a swirly, full on old school.
Which would be an impressive experience. I can't see it.
Put a skull on your head or something awesome, because that dude's studios just got it. I mean, the boys have been
I think you're getting guys. No, you're getting two people muddled up there. You're getting.
I'm getting mixed up with Dave. You guys all have such cool. Your guests anyway. Have such cool names like Guy, Dave. I mean, Bellingham, Shrimpton.
Yeah. Where's Dave Shrimpton? He's Cambridge way, isn't he? Somewhere down that.
Yeah, he's just down the road from me.
Right. Yeah.
See, he's down the road from you guys. My apologies to the two gentlemen whom I just got.
We'll just call them Guy Shrimpton, and then we're done.
Yes. That should be. They should have a workshop together. Yeah. The two of them, and it's just the Guy Shrimpton show. It'd be amazing. I think that'd be amazing, actually.
Well, Guy's definitely going to be hearing this conversation because he's an avid listener of the podcast, and
he's like, "You owe me coffee money for this. I'm not giving you coffee money." Eric,
when I watched the video earlier, and you were saying how you could do with knowing what a real tin type looked like, I was there thinking, you're only down the road from Guy. He's down the road, and not only that, you've also who is in turn only down the road from, is it Negative Thinking in Bristol? Is it? No, I think I'm pretty sure it's Negative Thinking. That's the apologies if it isn't, but that's the I think it's a community darkroom of some nature, but it's a very, very well equipped one, and I believe it's actually where Guy learned how to do wet plate collodion in the first place.
Right.
And I mean, this is Andrew and I have been talking about trying to, and just generally not having enough money to take a trip to Bristol for a day, to go down and have a chat with Guy and possibly take a look at this darkroom as well. Now you're on the doorstep, so so with that note, I'm now sure there's a video coming along quite soon, because there needs to be, because Guy's awesome.
If Guy wants to do it, for sure, I'll get in touch with him. He's doing some fascinating stuff as well with large format video. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Crazy looking stuff. Yeah. But he's, I think he's quite cagey about how exactly he does it. But it does look amazing though. This is like wildly short depth of field video.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's in fact only a couple of hours ago he put a link up in fact, I've got the page up here on our Facebook group, which is Large Format Photography Podcast on Facebook, which you should join, Nick. And
I'm in there. I am in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't say much. I'm shy.
Okay. I need to know what
I can
you're
tell
in.
that.
Yeah.
So I did actually put you in here early, but your name didn't link in. But no matter. But earlier on, Guy put an ultra large format video up, and it's with a YouTube link to Fraser Anderson, taken with the Heliar lens, which is the lens I'm currently talking to the three of you, sort of visually at least, through at the moment. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of music that's been recorded. It's beautifully. I'm going to use the word shot for once for a better word, and it's hardly had any views, and it upsets me that so few people have actually seen this. So we'll obviously be putting a link in our notes to this video, which will increase the viewer content by at least 3.
I was going to say us.
Yeah, that's it. I'll watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do head over to Guy Bellingham Photography on YouTube. He's only got 64 subscribers. I need to subscribe to him as well. But 112 views on this beautiful piece of video work. It's absolutely gorgeous. So please head over.
I didn't
there.
know it was on YouTube. That's
Yeah.
I thought it was just on Instagram and Facebook. But he's got a YouTube channel as well, right?
He has, yeah. Guy Bellingham Photography, and in particular, we're talking about Fraser Anderson - Lost and Found Theatre, and then ultra large format video. Got to be seen. It's absolutely gorgeous and a lovely piece of music as well.
Go subscribe to Guy right now.
We're all busy. Everyone stopped talking because everyone's gone on their phones.
Yeah, right. No, that's my laptop, sir. Thank you.
There you go. So it's come up straight away, and it says what do clowns dream of when they're asleep. So that's already got me.
Oh,
hooked.
I've
and
seen
then
that.
below that it says wet plate and tin types. There you go. 2 years ago. So I didn't know he had a YouTube channel, but he probably mentioned it when he came on the show, and I've just forgotten.
I'm dying to talk to him, not just to talk about wet plates and that kind of thing, but also talk about that he does, that large format or ultra large format video. Everything that I've seen so far is a single stationary shot, and I'm just dying to know if there's some kind of application for it, more widely used, if you say. I mean, application for it.
Are you thinking of hooking it up like some kind of large GoPro? Is that what you're thinking? Or?
Yeah, but can you imagine if you took this ultra large format camera and attached it to a GoPro?
Speaking of image,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to take your 8x10.
Yeah, I wonder if you could use no, but that wouldn't work. I was going to say I've seen people convert old 8x10 or 11x14 desktop scanners.
Oh, okay.
Into cameras, right? But that's not actually one giant sensor. It's just it's like slit photography. It goes, it comes across and does that. It's brilliant, but.
Well, I saw some comments on one of his old Instagram things where they asked whether or not, because you could just use kind of a double bellows system, right? Where you have a clear ground glass on the back of, say, an 8x10 with no markings on it, and then a second bellows that takes you through to a standard digital camera, whatever that might be, and therefore you're just filming the ground glass. Right. But he said no, that's not how he does it. So I don't know what he does.
So we'll send you down there as a LFPP. You can be our
roving reporter. Yeah,
exactly.
And you can go and steal all his industrial secrets and come and talk about them on the podcast.
Well, he did. I was going to say, Guy did talk about how he actually does his stills, his hybrid flow for his stills stuff, but that doesn't seem to be transferable to doing video from what I could remember. But it might be. It might be. Who knows? So go back and listen to that if you don't remember how he did it. Then because it's basically taking a digital photograph of an image that is projected on the inside of a box. So it's a bit like a camera obscura, but taking an image of the image that's been projected onto the back of a box, which sounds really simple.
Okay. So instead of a ground glass, he's essentially got a a second kind of angle on it. He kind of like a reverse reflex almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know. I'm saying exactly because I could see you with the hand movements and gestures you were making, but our listeners would understand that.
You're trying to say that I didn't explain it properly, Simon. Is that what no, he's pointing at a wall, and the image is on the wall, roughly. Yeah.
So let's talk about our guest again. We've just done the Guy Bellingham section of the podcast, which is always a pleasure.
Why the hell did you decide to go into large format? I'll just dive right into it. Like you've been doing 120 for forever, right? Which is like the sane and sensible step up from 35 millimeter if you want to get bigger.
Yep.
But then you go into large format becomes less sane and sensible, right? Because I just like you tried to shoot a Safari with a 4x5. 120, that's perfectly doable. You know, speaking as a fellow moron who goes into the field with 4x5s or photojournalism all the time, like smaller formats are way smarter for this. So why did you decide to go and stumble into something that's even more stumbly?
Yeah,
right.
Stumble is the right word. I ended up with a lens and shutter combination that would cover 4x5. And I was like, oh, I've got a lens. I might as well do this. I'm not kidding. It was that simple. In exactly the same way that, you know, I'm probably not going to follow this up. I'm not going to follow up the tintype thing, but I'll go off and do some ill-advised things. And as long as it's not going to cost me an absolute fortune, that's kind of the key. And so I, by chance, ended up with a lens. It was actually designed for a 9x12 camera. And I was looking at it thinking, well, you know, 9x12, 4x5. It's pretty close. So I wonder if, and so I went and looked in and started learning about large format and what the options were. And I got the cheapest possible camera system I could find. I paid 90 quid for a Toyo View monorail 45 seat. Okay. And there was no lens board, and it had some ground glass on the back. By the time I sold it, I obviously was then aware that I'd got an absolute bargain. And it was in amazing condition. And it was a wonderful camera. And I had a great time with that for a long time. But I totally, you know, got lucky with that. So yeah, I got a lens and then put together a few other bits and pieces. And there's a video on this actually on the channel of me literally going, oh my God, it works. That's amazing. And then I was kind of hooked from that point. And there's all sorts of things that I will test out and try and give a go once and not get hooked on them. So, but large format stuck. I think all the inconvenience of large format over, for example, medium format. What I love about it is the simplicity, and that it does come down to a lens, a box, and a sheet of film, and that's it. You know, and sure you can introduce as many kind of complications as you want on top of that, but it's the kind of the purest form of photography, I would say. I mean, well, even with Pinhole, you know, it's as basic as it gets, and therefore, in order to do it well, and in order to kind of find your way through it, you really have to dig down into the principles of photography. The most basic stuff that they were discovering in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And that has been, that's what I've really enjoyed about the whole thing. And you know, a lot the art side of things and the result and the images that you end up with are beautiful and wonderful. I do enjoy that, but I think I'm slightly more technically minded, and you know what has kept me going on it is getting into the science and the you know engineering of the cameras and the lenses and learning all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I get that. And then when you start doing like movements and you actually like figuring out like how film planes work and focal planes work and that sort of thing. You start like mucking around with that, like, ooh, you know, like actually twisting things around. It you know what, arguably the most complicated kind of photography you could ever consider doing.
Even after what have I been doing now for like 3, 4, 5 years? I think since I've got that 9x12 lens and threw together my first collection of large format bits and bobs and exposed the 4x5 sheet. In that time, my brain still doesn't think in camera movements. Like when I'm planning a shoot, or if I'm thinking of how I'm going to do this, it doesn't occur to me to introduce movements. And that's something that I keep, and then I get home and I'll be like, "Wow, this is wonderful. This went really well." And then I thought, I could have done this, I could have done that, and that it just didn't pop into my head.
But if you're primarily, I guess it's driven in many ways. It's driven by the subject matter, isn't it? Because press photographers would have used handheld speed graphics, Graflexes, and with limited movement. Well, they didn't really need it. And if you're photographing people, headshots, whatever, you don't necessarily need it. I guess if you're photographing architecture or landscapes, and you might want to introduce a bit. If you're trying to photograph a giraffe with a large format camera and you manage to get right close to it, well, the last thing you want to be doing is tilting the lens forward, because you're going to end up with, you're never going to get that big tall thing all in focus by shifting the lens board forward. You might as well just
feels like a challenge, Andrew.
Yeah, you just want to get the head in focus,
so you could get an
and everything else blurred out. Then
you could get an arty picture of a giraffe by employing shine plug, and and then getting that image plane cut in right through the middle of the giraffe, and then just opening it up sufficient so you get his neck in focus and then his head blurred or something. That'd be good.
No, I'm going back to Africa, Andrew. I'm going back. I'm going to do it again.
So what's the deal with Africa then? Because I don't know enough about you, and I perhaps haven't done enough research, but you just suddenly said, I'm back in Africa, as though it was like normal, Is it normal?
I've spent a lot of time in Africa in the last 12 months with work, basically.
Right.
So I think Simon mentioned it. I don't really do this while we were recording or not, and it's not a secret. I don't necessarily volunteer it, but I work in TV and in documentaries.
Okay.
And I am very lucky in that it takes me all over the world.
Yeah.
And I do try and take the cameras with me and try and kind of use the free travel to get some exotic YouTube videos.
But you were just walking out in I just walked down this sort of track, and suddenly there's like Thompson's gazelles leaping out at the front of you, like
that's Africa. That's Africa. That's how it looks like. Yeah,
but it's not like in Johannesburg. You don't get in the middle of the streets in Joburg, do you? You don't.
No. I mean, you'd be amazed at the places that you find wildlife out there.
Okay.
And it is bonkers. That actually, the place where I did the Thompson's gazelle and the giraffes was a little private reserve, literally like 20 minutes from the centre of Johannesburg.
Right.
But if you head a bit further north and get towards the Botswana border, for example, then you're into just unfenced wilderness. It is surprising. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Botswana a few years ago, and that place is just crazy. It'll literally, you get towards the north of there, and you're stopping on the road every 15-20 minutes to wait for the elephants to pass. It is in places it's breathtaking for sure. In South Africa, you do still get a lot of roaming wildlife. They tend to be more the things that don't comply with fences. So, for example, elephants will get out beyond the national parks. Monkeys, as you get further north as well. But there's a lot of wildlife down there in Africa. Yeah, it's easy enough to come by. It did help as well that was a small kind of fenced reserve, and I did do that intentionally. I did go there intentionally because you do stand a chance of animals letting you get a bit closer to them.
You were quite dismissive of some of your images, and I was sort of shouting at the screen saying, "I really like that." There was like an antelope where his head had moved, and I thought, I thought it was great.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought you've introduced a bit of movement there, partly because you just, I don't know what lenses you're using, but you're just taking the cap off and on, and I thought, well, I don't even know what were you using, a really fast, slow film.
I don't remember. But the lens was a 360 mil.
Not 300.
No, you watched the video. Yeah, I got it wrong. Yeah, it's that one. 360 mil Rodenstock Apo Ronar. So no shutter in it. I'm pretty sure I was probably using FP4, I would guess. That's normally my kind of go-to. So ISO 125, 125, I would have shot it at bottom speed, and it was blazing sunshine. But I was having to stop down on the lens to try and make sure that I was getting it in focus, and also because I didn't have a shutter, and therefore I was just doing it by hand, and so I can't get. I reckon I can do about maybe a 15th of a second with my hand.
It sounds like an ideal situation for one of those dry plates. Maybe next time, just make life a bit harder for yourself and shoot large format tin types for wildlife.
Hold still, will ya? Hold still.
Do you know what really? And I did say this in the video, but and I felt a bit stupid afterwards for not realizing. But the real difficulty of shooting wildlife on large format is not it's not all the complications of timing with getting your film holder in and focusing and hoping the animal's going to stay still. The really difficult thing is your focal length, and the fact that the longest lens that my bellows will take is 360 mil, and I can't remember. I did work this out. It's like the equivalent of about 120 mil on a 35 mil camera. And you wouldn't leave the house with a 120 mil lens to go and photograph wildlife.
In the past, you'd have gone like in the proper analog days. I remember looking at 500 millimeter mirror lenses because that was like the cheapest way of getting into really long lenses. So
I can't remember the.
It's just like a portrait, like a bit of a long portrait lens you took out, really, wasn't it?
Exactly, and so I literally have, in order to so I started looking for bigger animals. So let's try and find a giraffe because let's try and find a giraffe I can get close to. And even then, like I'm standing right next to this giraffe, and I can get a kind of a head and shoulders, and obviously that for a giraffe, a head and shoulders is it's not close. But that's the big problem is to actually get if you wanted to fill the screen with fill the frame with a giraffe's face, you'd basically need to be riding.
Should have enticed it down with a sumptuous goodie.
Yeah, I think they were friendly, but not that friendly.
And then got it in a neck brace so that it held still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was my next thing.
You would have needed like a double tripod setup, right? Like a double bellows and a double tripod, and like a 900 millimeter, and be like, hold still.
It'd be more than that. I think I worked out that a 400. I can't remember the exact things now, but I think it worked it out that a 400 mil lens on a 35 mil camera would be the equivalent of like 1,300 on a 4x5. So you'd have to have more than a meter of bellows.
There was a chap in America. I think it was in the 50s or 60s or something like that, and he was taking pictures like from New Jersey of New York with large format. I saw a photograph of him, but I thought, what on earth? Because he was standing on a skyscraper somewhere, and they had this enormous extension, double extension,
with supports all the way along it. Is he?
Exactly, and this lens at the front of it, and you're thinking that small lens is a long way away from the film plane. But he got some absolutely incredible photographs. I mean, he's a celebrated photographer. I cannot remember what the chap's name is, but he did some absolutely amazing photographs with that setup. I mean, it reminds me of the other day I took out my Taylor Hobson rapid view meniscus, or maybe a doublet lens, which I think that's actually past the point of extension on my Chroma Adventurer. So I have to put an extension on the front of my camera to get it to the point where I can actually focus it to do people. It's fine with infinity with those bellows, but if you want to get something closer, which is what I want it for, then I had to put the extension on it. But it looked like a sort of modern version of what this guy was doing like 50 odd years ago. And
that is the problem, isn't it, with large format, is that I think so obviously the mirror lenses when on 35mm or whatever, even medium format, mirror lenses deal with that distance that you need between the camera by essentially doubling up the amount of distance that you have between the front lens by using the mirror. Eric, you'll probably know more about this and how your modern telephoto lenses work, but how they essentially deal with the fact that a 400mm lens does not actually require 400mm between but obviously and again that goes back to that simplicity of large format, and that a 360mm lens usually is a 360mm lens that you require 360 mils to get an infinity focus with, right?
I kind of regret selling my Sinar. Well, I started off with the Sinar F, and then I sort of kept the Sinar system. You can keep buying bits to it until it becomes an F2, and then a P1, and then a P2, and then it got awfully complicated, and it frightened me. Then once I'd upgraded it to a really technical F2, I thought, this is just bonkers now. So I sold it. But I keep hankering after a monorail camera because, they're so flexible, aren't they, with bag bellows, and then you can add the extensions on, and I can finally use my 300mm lens, which in theory would fit on my Toyo, but I can't quite get for close-up shots. It won't really, it doesn't really work. So I think I'm probably eventually going to be on the lookout back for another monorail like your cheap Toyo C.
Do you know, I was spoiled with it when I very first started, and it's great. I don't know, maybe if I'd gone for something more suited to what I wanted to do with it, that I wouldn't have been hooked in the same way that I got hooked on the large format thing. But I used it for a little while, and then I got rid of it because I wanted to be out and about with it, and it was a hell of a lump to carry around.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you think, I need a field camera.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but I do look back, and I'm still out and about with it mostly. Don't do much studio stuff, and therefore, but it's amazing, and it's kind of the ultimate, right? It is. There are no allowances. Do you know what I mean? It has all the movements and all the
too many really.
They're just so hard to use. You don't use field. They just weigh so much. Between the rail and then like taking out of whatever bag you've managed to wedge it into.
I love that
portable, and then the time to set it up. It just
I loved all that process. I love the fact that it was
really hard.
I love the fact that it was so modular and you could do so much with it. I just liked the aesthetic of it, but it was really impractical, for what I wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
When I
still want to try to do 8x10 in the field for photojournalism, but the 8x10 is such a fucking beast.
Yeah,
to be genuinely portable. I mean, I'm going to one of these days, damn it. But it's just so impractical. It's the size of your torso, even packed up. You're just like,
When I was out last.
That's your next step. Sorry, Nick. Your next step is an 8x10.
I'm not being drawn to it yet. There may come a time.
You wait.
I've got to start again with everything. I need all new bits for every part of it, don't you? But
when you get an 8x10 negative, though, you're just like.
But you see, I think I've kind of reached I bet it's incredible to have in your hand. But I've reached that, that kind of resolution ceiling where I'm not so interested in the contact printing. And therefore, if I'm enlarging, it's going to be some time before my enlarging of 4x5s, my skill at enlarging, I kind of outgrow my skill and need something more from the hardware. So yeah, no desire to offload another boatload of cash and go 8x10 just now.
Simon,
I'm sorry, Simon. I'm just interrupting everybody today.
What I was going to say there, it was just going back to what you were saying about taking monorail cameras out, and that trip that I mentioned earlier that I was out with my Taylor Hobson lens. It was an outing by our 6x Darkroom club. We did the Wirral, New Brighton, and places like that with Dig of the Dump, who's on Twitter and other places, and
Blue Sky.
On Blue Sky. Blue Sky seems to be the way. I'm hopeful the Blue Sky is going to be the outlet that the refugees of Twitter will be able to go to, hopefully. I mean, we said Threads last time, and then you said Mastodon the time before, or you actually said something else, actually, if I remember correctly. And so, yeah, hopefully.
I wouldn't go to that one that begins with M just because of the name.
Yeah, exactly. Paul Bullock, I feel like I've got to mention everybody that came with us now. But yeah, so
you're going to be offending someone.
Exactly, and yeah, I'm just going to offend the rest. But Robert Price, who actually does deserve offending, but I will mention his name. He was with us, and he had his Toyo monorail, and he takes it around with a backpack that looks like he can go up Everest with it. I mean, it's ridiculous, but he does it. And he loves using it because it gives him all the flexibility that he wants on site. Because that's the thing. Once you've got the thing set up, they're a doddle to use. They're easier to use, I think, than a conventional field camera. It's just the lugging about is the issue there, of course. But I want to head back to one of your. I mean, you've touched upon it already when you were talking about lenses earlier with Eric, and that video you did. I think it's probably about 3 large format videos back now, maybe 2. I don't know where we're at. But you mentioned earlier about you people being inspired by you, and then you ran away from that. And which I was inspired by that particular video that you did on vintage lenses, because, and that was the reason why I went out and with the Taylor Hobson lens. And taking pictures of a lighthouse with it, which is a really odd thing to do. And I got quite a decent result out of it in the end, to be fair. But it was this thing about I was having a conversation with Paul Bullock about certain lenses, but he was asking me advice on a Cooke AVR lens, and I think it was a 6-inch one. Or there's another one. There's a couple of different sizes and different focal f-stops. And I asked him, what's the point? What's the point in that? Because you've got really good lenses, and they say, what I mean by a really good lens, I mean a modern 4x5 lens. And when they say modern, something that's been out in the last 40 years plus is a modern 4x5 lens, as far as I'm concerned. And then you get some lenses that are full of character, maybe like an Aero Hectar or something that's really, really fast, or a projection lens or whatever. So they do funky things, and then you get all the lenses in between, and in particular you get those the vintage lenses that aren't particularly fast. They don't pretend to ever have done anything interesting ever. They're just lenses. They were just what people would have bought at the time. The equivalent of a Vivitar 28mm, or whatever it is. That's just what they were. And I was thinking, what's the point? And I put him off. I put him off buying this lens, but he listened to me, which was I'm never sure why Paul ever listens to me, but he did that time at least. Anyway, and then you did your video. And your video, and we should talk about this a little bit more, but I'm going to paraphrase it now. And you started your video off with a modern Schneider lens, and it was a portrait shoot that you were doing. Yeah. And so you took a shot with that, and then you used several different old lenses, none of which you had a shutter. So you were guessing your timings and using your hand as a shutter or lens cap as a shutter. And at the end of it, you finished off with a modern lens again. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, but of all you showed all the lens. Well, you showed. I know the photographs that worked, because I know that at the end of the day, if you're using your hand as a shutter,
I screwed a few of them up. Yeah.
But
quite a few.
But that's it. But the thing is, the first shot and the last shot with a modern sharp lens with a good shutter or whatever were by far the least interesting shots that you took. And
I agree.
Yeah, and the others, every single one of them had something about them which you could recommend because they gave something to the image that the modern lens did not at all. And from that got me out with that Taylor Hobson lens. It made me adapt to see how many things I could put into my Copal 3 shutter, and there's loads of things I can put into a Copal 3.
There's so many things you put in a Copal 3 shutter.
and all of a sudden I'm there thinking, oh, look, this dull lens, I can do something really interesting in that. And that was directly because of your video.
I'm glad to have. I don't know if inspired is the right word. I don't know. When I talk about inspiration, I think of somebody that I look up to, that a photographer who I wish to be like. But I guess inspiration it is also just you feeling enthused, kind and feeling the drive to get up and go and do things. And I think that's all I can really offer people. I'm not offering, a kind of a something to aspire to.
Perhaps it's more of a case of I can do better than that.
Yeah, but it is, and that's fine. That's great, And to be honest with you, like a lot of these videos that I do are just stuff that I want to do, And what I really wanted to do was go and take all these lenses out and see what they look like. And the right thing to do in order to genuinely compare them would be to probably shoot with my my mannequin in my garage with fixed lighting, and set up, almost like one of those test sheets, and just take each one and go through these lenses. I don't want to do that. And so we wandered around the park with Mel, and it's very difficult to really compare the lenses because they're all different. Like all the shots are different. So, but I think you're right, and they all did have something interesting about them, and it makes me want to go out. And in fact, I'm going to be starting. You got Matt Marash has got his large format Fridays. I'm going to be starting One Lens Wednesdays,
nice.
Where we just head out with one single lens and try and do various different shoots with that one single lens, and hopefully learn a bit more about it. Because ultimately, I came back and I do this kind of the little wrap up thing in my studio, this room. At the end of it, and I can't really draw any conclusions. I didn't learn anything from it because there was no control. There was no, nothing that we could really compare. But the images that you get from them are certainly they're lenses that I've used a few times now that I definitely like, and that's great. And I guess that's all I really wanted from doing it. So
I was gonna say, depends on how you want to define what you do or don't learn, right? Because you're not following a scientific process, but very few people follow a genuine scientific process. Again, not many people are like that. And when we try, we just get frustrated. So what you learn is what the lens does actually do in the real world, how it actually shoots. Functionally, this one shot great, but the results weren't any good. I'm sure when you're meandering through 120 cameras, there's some that just super fun to shoot. The results are crap. And there's some that are giant nightmare to shoot, and the results are brilliant. And you just have to decide what you're how much punishment you want to take for how much result, or vice versa. So I think it's kind of the same thing. If you do your One Lens Wednesdays and you're looking at, not let's say from being scientific, but the lens was great to shoot landscapes and it was awful to shoot portraits, or vice versa, or it was just fun to shoot, but man, the results are lousy. So if you want a great experience just shooting and you don't care about the results, this lens is for you. Or if you want super sharp stuff and it's a nightmare, then maybe this lens is for you. But don't ever try to shoot a drop with it.
Yeah, I think that's it though. Some of the, when I did that lens video, there were some of them that I was using for the first time. And that's really difficult. Even shoot 3-4 frames with one lens and then come back, develop those and try and draw conclusions from that is impossible, right?
Right.
One single outing with a lens and try and give any kind of reasoned opinion on it. Whereas there are a couple of lenses in there that I was using for the third time or the fourth time. And now I know that having seen, I've got that photo with this lens and I got this image with this lens. And now I'm seeing this, I can start to spot patterns. And I might be wrong with it, of course, that's perfectly possible. But for example, the Emil Bush A-plane at I've had that out maybe 3 or 4 times in really different situations, and I think I gave you the kind of conclusions on the end of that video where I think that the contrast seems to drop off a fair amount towards the edges of that lens, and you get quite a nice sharp image in the middle. It's quite hard to define and it's quite hard to spot, but all I notice is that on each of my images they're quite bright at the edges. And not particularly well defined. And like I say, the only way I've ever managed to spot that is by taking it out 4 or 5 times, and developing the images again and going, I'm starting to see a pattern here. I wonder if it could be the lens
Right.
rather than just me cocking it up, which is, what I normally blame.
Just as we've gone quiet there, I was just reading.
Everyone's processing.
Yeah, I'm just in our large format photography podcast Facebook group at the moment, and at the start of this podcast, I took a sneaky screenshot and posted it into the group.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's a very complimentary screenshot.
Yeah,
for me. I appreciate that one.
Yeah, and
Where is my phone? What are you up to?
Yeah, and and we've had some comments there from people that I think everyone will know, actually, funnily enough. James Lane has gone, ooh,
There's our boy.
And and you've met James, and you've been to his house, if I remember correctly.
I did go to his house, yeah. God, I can't remember how any of these things ever come up. I'll have some sort of harebrained idea and pick up the phone, and before you know it, I'm sitting in someone's living room filming a video. I wanted him. What was I doing? I was doing a kind of a test, another one of these utterly imperfect tests of something. And I'd given 510 Pyro a go. And again, I was looking at it, and rather than me making completely uneducated guesses at why things were happening as they were, I thought, well, let's just sit down with him and get him to look at it and tell me what's going on. And he was great. I sat down with him, and he basically looked at my negatives and said, well, this is shit. This one's shit as well. I know, but I think he was like, oh, this is overdeveloped and this is underdeveloped. And I was like, yeah, but let's talk about the 510 Pyro. Yeah. But yeah, and I've had a fair bit of his 510 Pyro out of him. But it's good, good. I think we've all used it, have we? I think we're pretty much contractually obliged to mention 510 Pyro once an episode, or James gets on our back. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I have never used Pyro.
Yeah.
And I've gone back to where I do use it, PyroCat HD. Sorry, James.
Oh my word!
I can't deal with the gloopiness of it. And I know James often messages me. Hello, James, and he shared with me pictures of eggs and things, with different levels of shadow detail. and I get it, I do get it, but. Really, I'm. Oh, don't get me started. But I do get it, and I think the beauties of any of the staining developers. And yeah, James, okay, yours is clearly much better at photographing eggs than anyone else's, in terms of shadow rendition and gradation. But the beauty of all these staining developers is they just make life a lot easier for many photographers, because they have this way of controlling highlights, and they all do it slightly differently. And some will say, well, this color stain will help, and that one won't, and that'll overstain. And people will come up with all sorts of different reasons why you should use PyroCat HD or 510 Pyro or PMK Pyro, and I've used all of them. And to be honest, I've had results that I love on all of them. And if you're getting results that you love, just don't stress over it, I think there is no magic bullet, and I've told James there's no magic bullet, and I think he agrees. Although he says I know he's working on a few other developers, one of which seems to be the closest thing to a magic bullet that you can possibly ever get. But then, hey, I don't know. Stick with the developer, work with it a little bit, and you'll find that you'll fall in love with it. I'm sure. Whether it's 510 Pyro, Rodinal ID11.
HC110.
Yeah, whatever.
HC110, which you can't buy anywhere. Has anybody seen any HC110 on sale in the last 6 months?
I use one of the generic versions thereof.
Well, isn't the lab gone tits up? Is it Sinos? The people who make.
I don't know.
There's a company that makes all the chemicals for Kodak, and I'm sure they're.
They just close the doors.
Close the doors.
Well,
I've got a bottle of
Kodak sold their. Yeah, they did. Kodak sold their chemical to a company in China. They sold everything for their chemicals to a company based in Hong Kong or something, and they went under.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right? So is HC110 gone? I know that.
I think so. Yeah.
FPP film photography, they're making something, aren't they?
Yeah, and so are Bellini and Ilford. I don't know where Ilford will be sourcing they're from. I mean, Technol supply a lot of Ilford stuff, so I don't know whether they're
and
doing
Legacy Pro.
Legacy Pro. I've got a bottle of Ilfotech HC, which I'd never used. Ben Mills gave it to me along with a load of other stuff and some stainless steel spirals that I sent to our beloved Simon. And I've had nice negatives that make nice prints from all these things, you know. And I don't know. People say, "Oh, yeah, but you're just making nice prints. You should be making prints that glow." And I said, "Yeah, probably should." You know.
This is my problem with all
That's
of
your inner glow, Andrew. You have an inner glow, and they're just disappointed when your prints don't match your inner glow.
I know. Yeah, that's because I'm not using 510 Pyro.
Yeah. So my problem with all of these products or anything that I test or use on my channel, what I do is just not consistent enough. Like I can't.
No, me neither.
It's until you're a proper professional fine art photographer, then you can start really digging down into the difference between this stain developer.
But then when you're because when you're a fine art photographer, then just get some photo emulsion and slap it onto some watercolor paper in a fairly haphazard manner. Do some little swirls for the sky, and I'm not taking the mickey at all. I'm really serious. That he's producing images that sell in galleries and stuff, but I know Graham's not a, he doesn't go into that much detail over the technicalities of developing and different types of developers, so anyway.
I know. I mean, I will admit I was just like meandering back through my train of thought of making my own negatives, because like back to Nick's point about large format photography being the short of pinhole, like because pinhole is the most simplest lens you can imagine. But large format being as pure a form of photography as possible. It's also making your own negatives sort of like boils it down one more, right? Like you're making your own negatives. If you're an idiot like me, you make your own lenses, and and make your own cameras. So you just go one step further. It's like, but I don't know if I have also to the next point, like the control of consistent process to do it properly, right? So that my emulsion doesn't float off the paper when I'm developing and like turn to crap or whatever. And then you spend all that time doing a shoot, or if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for a paid piece because that's just what I do, and then have it turn out to be crap, and it's like I'll never be able to go back and get those portraits again, or because the event is done or whatever I'm reporting on is over, right? So that's probably my.
So you want
to do your fine art stuff you just said, Andrew, just to say that I've built everything from start to finish. Yeah. But like that's the one place where you can't just kind of fucking wing it, right?
Yeah, I'm not really talking about winging it. I know Graham's, makes nice negatives, and he can make normal darkroom prints with his negatives, which have got lovely shadow detail and his highlights aren't overblown. But he then chooses to use liquid emulsion on watercolor paper, and he's not looking for the perfect, is he? He's looking for something that
well, that's my point.
Gives him that
someone like Graham, like somebody like Graham has that control of process. Like he has the ability to do it again and again and again with the watercolor paper and the emulsion. Like he has like scientific process, right? Like boom, boom, boom. Whereas like people like, not to pull you in here, Nick, but like Nick or I are just like going in there and flailing around and like pounding on things with sticks and seeing what happens. And if you ask us to do the same thing twice, we're gonna have a really hard time doing that, right?
That's a good summary of what I do, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that was cool. I should do that again. I don't remember how I did that exactly. Like,
but yeah, you're right. And then when it comes down to the fine differences between tonality of one developer versus another developer, then you're really like, well, I'm certainly not doing it justice. But it's fun to play with, and it's certainly fun to try different things. But it does. I think what it really comes down to, and the love of large format, is more to do with the process. It's more to do with the combination of all of these different technical aspects coming together in one single moment to create an image that I'm finally happy with. And then, as Eric says, then I'll never be able to replicate that moment. And that moment is gone. And we have one image.
You said somewhere in one of your videos that you're a lover of landscape, but you've hardly ever made a landscape picture that you're happy with.
So
tell us more about that.
The process of landscape photography, in other words, camera on my back, and marching through the countryside on my own, sit on a rock and stare thoughtfully into the distance. That's my happy place. But I just landscape photographs taken, and obviously I want to do it with a camera. I want to go walking through the countryside with a camera, and I want to take images that I come back and go, oh, there you go. And I don't. I take images. I come back and go.
Do you think it's because you're just not dedicated enough? And I'm not being disparaging
because I'm shit at it, Andrew.
Yeah, but I'm the same as you. You see, because I like the process. I like going out into the fens with a large format camera. And it's very meditative and peaceful. It's a bit like fishing. Sometimes people go fishing and they sit there all day long and they don't catch anything, but they just enjoy it, Yeah.
And I've made that comparison photo. I think I actually edited it out of one of my videos. That exact comparison it is like fishing. But and it is that, like you say, meditative and
you've got to get up. You've got to, if you watch any of Ben Horn's been a guest on this program. We teased him. Well, I teased him a little bit because I'm an avid fan of Ben and watch all his videos. And he goes into the canyons, slot canyons, and he goes to Death Valley, and he goes to these places year after year after year for the last 10, 12 years. So he knows the place intimately, the places intimately. He knows the landscape intimately, and he starts his videos, and it's like dark. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's got his woolly hat on. He's drinking his tea, and I thought I just could never get up at 4 o'clock in the morning with my gear to be in the right spot. He says, "Oh, I've got to be at this sort of spot." Then I know that come 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to get reflected light bouncing off this canyon wall, and the images go. And of course, he produces these stunning slide, 8x10. Transparencies, because he puts the effort in, and I can't be asked.
If I can transparency, you better.
Sorry, Eric.
That's expensive, man. If you're going to shoot 8x10 chrome, you better.
So
when he
makes a mistake, he'll say, that's $20 just gone down the pan or something. But he doesn't often, And he's spending all day. He's only exposing probably, at most, if he shoots 4 frames, that's a lot for him, but then he's selling his work, he's selling prints, he's selling books, and and I think he's probably given up his day. He was working in a store somewhere. I think he might have given that up. Now I'm not sure. People can subscribe to his channel and stuff. So he puts the effort in, and if you watch any of his videos, you'll see, and I think that's probably what it takes to be a landscape. So, Nick,
I think you're absolutely spot on with that, Andrew. I really do. And I'm not in a position life-wise where I can commit that kind of time, unfortunately.
No, me neither.
I have said this before that I've tried to set aside 3-4 hours, but even that's not enough. And especially if you're wandering aimlessly, hoping to stumble across an.
But you see, Ben will then be, before he goes on his trip, he'll be poring over the maps and this app and that app and seeing which way the sun's coming from, because he's got an app that shows him that, and he'll be planning it, and he'll drop his pins in at various places. So that's what you're supposed to do,
Absolutely. And I've done similar, and I do have apps that will tell me where the sun's going to be, but ultimately what the time that I get there is dictated by my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old, not by photographic, the pursuit of photographic perfection. And I think ultimately I'm not going to stop taking landscape photographs because I love the process. But I have yet to, like, even when I did put a video out a couple of weeks ago where I was up in Snowdonia. I was taking landscapes on the Bronica ETRS, and some of those were nice. They were nice images, but I look at them and I just like.
So what are you after then, right? If you're not getting what you want, that means that you need to stop thinking about
Eric, if I knew that,
and look for something that you want.
If I knew what I wanted, Eric, then I'd go and get it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
See, I think the thing is, Nick, I think when I've got large format cameras and I've got decent medium format cameras. I've got one decent 35mm camera, but the images that please me most in print and I come back to time and time again are ones I've made with my Holga or with my pinhole camera.
Really?
And I think it's because the same reason you're talking about old lenses, with swirly gigs and whirly gigs, because they're just a bit different. I can take my RB67 out and produce a beautifully sharp image of a fenland scene, but it's not speaking to me really in the way that I've been on Blue Sky. I've been sharing some old Polaroid pictures I've done over the last 10 years of fenland, and when I re-look at those, I think, yeah, this is how I connect with the landscape, through these more imperfect images, and I struggle then to see. So then when I take my RB out, I think, well, what am I doing with it, really?
I think this is exactly it, and this is exactly the process that goes through my head when I'm out. So I came back with and I'm super impressed with this Bronica ETRS, as you'll have seen from some of the videos. That it's a cracking camera, super sharp images. And I came back and I developed these negatives, and I looked at it and thought, that is a very accurate representation of what I saw on the day. Yeah, well done, me.
Could have used your iPhone.
Yeah, but am I gonna print it and stick it on the wall?
Isn't it? Yeah. No. Yeah.
So yeah, this is it's a subject in which I'm doing a lot of soul searching. I've got a book actually. I don't know if you've seen it. Is it called Landscape Beyond? Can I see if I can find it? It's just here. 1 second.
Yeah.
That's like did Buzz Lightyear write that?
Yeah. This one, sorry, I think Landscape Beyond is the second one. So this one's Landscape Within, by David Ward. Have you seen that one?
No, you shouldn't be giving me book recommendations. I've got far too many. What's it called? Tell me.
Landscape Within. And he specifically is looking into and talking about the why of landscape photography as opposed to the how.
Yes.
And so it has struck a bit of a chord, and it has helped with my kind of thought process when heading out heading out on a walk. And maybe I need to start thinking about it as landscape photography.
Well, if you go back and listen to as we've started getting guests on again for the second time round, we must have Steve Segersby on again soon. And Steve is part of that posh term, a collective called the Inside the Outside, which is just a brilliant name. It's a group of landscape photographers, and they publish. There's 4 or 5 of them, and they bring people with the same kind of ethos as they have, and so it's landscape, but it's so they're outside, but it's inside. So it's about getting inside the landscape creatively, metaphorically, thoughtfully. So it's much more about the why than the how, like you said. So that's and I think when we talk, we get on talking about expressive photography and all that stuff about putting emotion into image making. Which probably touches on your landscape within book. What's the name of the author?
David Ward.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you read it?
About half of it, maybe. I tend to kind of dip in and out of it.
What have you taken away from it so far?
What I've taken from it is thinking about things differently, and looking at trying to capture the emotion or trying to capture a memory of what I'm feeling at the time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so from that point of view, those photos that I took with the Bronica ETRS are not necessarily bad images. If I sit down with those and look back at them, am I transported back to that moment? Because there's 2 separate things there within this landscape block, or whatever you want to call it, that I have. One is, what are good images that I think are good images, and then there's what are good images that I think other people will think are good images, and therefore, what am I looking for? Something that appeals to me, or am I looking for something that I think is good our kind of the how we judge things as a photography society, if that makes sense. And so from the point of view of what I think is good and what actually strikes an emotional chord with me, those ETRS images, those very sharp, accurate representations of the scene that was in front of me, are good. They do strike a chord with me. I do enjoy looking at them. I have gone back and look at them again. But I don't think that they are the sort of thing. I wouldn't enter them into any competitions. Let's put it that way. So I don't know. It is. We can get really in the weeds here with this stuff.
No, I love it. I
saw myself right into a corner.
I'm a huge fan of his American photographer Richard Mizrach, and I don't know if you know his work, but he started photographing certainly with large format photographs in the American desert, in the Saltern Sea. Is that right?
Salton Sea, yeah.
Salton Sea.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And most recently, you can find him on YouTube, and he talks for about an hour. His slideshow presentation. He did this series of books, Desert Cantos, and cantos means groups of songs and music in sequence and in groups of ideas. So he was photographing out in the desert, and he found that as he was compiling his images, there were themes emerging, and he put them into groups and published this book called Desert Cantos. And then he spent time. Oh, I'd love to get him on this show. Then he spent time photographing, and Eric will chime with this, along the American border with Mexico, and he produced a body of work called Border Cantos, and that's what the YouTube video is, and I'd highly recommend going to look at it. And I've managed to get a copy of Border Cantos, and the exhibition paired his images with musical installations by a Mexican, I think he's Mexican or Argentinian installation artist, sound artist. Because I wasn't prepared to be talking about this, I can't remember his name, but he's mentioned in the book, and he appears on the video. So, for instance, Richard finds shoes discarded by the wall, and he said, "I can only imagine, someone's got over the wall." I mean, and by the wall, he goes into what the different types are. He shows, well, hey, this wall kind of ends here. People can walk around it, or this wall looks like something from World War II, or this bit's repurposed from Area 51, and he's very much into the meaning of the wall and what it represents. And then the found images, the found objects he finds, he takes back to his sound artist, who then makes musical instruments from them. So this whole installation, you've got his videos, is the sound made by things that were found, and Richard's images, and it's just taking landscape photography to a really high level. And I love all that thoughtful stuff. So Richard Mizrach, Misrach, and he's published also in the Aperture Workshops photography workshop series, which again, if you want books about thoughtful photography, that little series by Aperture photography workshop series, they're all about 15 to 20 quid each, and Richard has one of those, and there's Todd Hydo has one who does all the nighttime houses and stuff, and there's probably half a dozen of those, and they're not technique books. They're all the wide, in the same way as I've just seen your landscape within, and I saw new copies for about 25-30 quid, and then on Abe Books I can get one for £3 delivered. So, and they've all got 5-star ratings. So, if you're into that sort of thoughtful landscape photography, if you're going through the same sort of issues that I go through, and you clearly do, Nick, from what you're saying about why am I doing this, and what then take some inspiration from someone like David Ward or Richard Mizrach. Go onto YouTube, and maybe that'll inspire you to take some of those thoughts and ideas and apply them into your own world, and maybe that'll boost your creativity and give some meaning to your photography, if that's what you're struggling with.
I will certainly be looking up Richard Mizrach. That sounds amazing. I would love to go and have a
his
look
work
at
is
stuff.
beautiful. I'm looking at it right now. It's absolutely.
Have you found border cantos?
Really stunning.
Go and look at the
Yeah,
when you get an hour, both of you go and look at the YouTube. His on border cantos he stands at a lectern and he shows his pictures and he talks about the images and his and the stories behind them, and it's just brilliant. And I've got desert cantos and border cantos books. Really good. It's one of those embarrassing silences again.
No. I was just staring at that book. I was going to say, going back to the topic, and also that plays into what Richard Misrach is doing, because he's making really, like, he's combining images, and like I just got some of his books. He's not making like perfect photos, right? Like not everything is sharp from start to finish. He's
like James, like your hero, James Fee.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another one, James Fee.
James Fee is the man. But that brings me back to like what you were talking about, because I have a Bronica DRS-I as well, and you're right, it's a brilliant camera. I sometimes struggle with a little bit with like the auto exposure part and trusting it to make the right exposures, but that's just me being a distrustful person. And the lenses are brilliant. Like I've used those lenses on my Fuji GFX, right, and just adapted them over, because 645 to the Fuji GFX is about as close as you can get for like true to true. But also I've attempted to make my own lenses for the Bronica, and it gets really difficult because it's a leaf shutter, an electronically controlled leaf shutter. So you have to, I should have one right here. Dirty. I've got to take this thing out and shoot with it. But you have to take like an existing ETRS lens that's got still a functioning electronic shutter, but crap glass, and rip the glass out and then put your own glass into it. But that is one way to make really imperfect photos with your Bronica ETS-RI, is to just to mess with the lenses somehow.
That is a next one of the things on my list, actually, is inspired by you, Eric. In fact, is making my own lens. I would like to build a lens for myself. But do you know what? I did want to ask you, actually.
Message me, man. We can talk.
I will do. I mean, I'm curious to know whether you actually. I mean, you can't just build lenses through trial and error, do you? You must have some kind of. Do you? You just glue glass together and see what happens.
Yeah. I'm like that. Well, there is a very basic, as Jason Lane will politely call it, like back of the envelope formula for figuring out focal lengths.
Okay.
That just kind of gets you in the rough vicinity of what at least the effective focal length will be. And then from there, you just wing it. Like I've bought glass elements from the surplus shed that on math will give me the right focal length lens and the right back focal length, it'll give me what I need. But then like you put them together and the image is just shite. It's just, I'm using the proper British vernacular.
Yeah.
Utter shite, and it's like, crap, that's just not good. But I've also used others. It's like within the same sort of focal length. And it's like, oh man, I'm going to buy as many of these optical elements as I bloody well can, because this combination is awesome. Like these punch way above their weight for $7.50 an optical element, but these, God, I'll never buy these again. And of course I forget, right? Because I don't actually make notes. And then later I'm like, oh, I need to make a 200 millimeter lens. And I like buy them. I'm like, oh, I bought these. They must've been good. And then I get them like, oh, these are crap. Why did I buy these again? Son of a... And they go into the pile of that exact same, like slowly growing pile of that exact same piece of glass. That's just complete shite. But no, it's basically like, what focal length do you want to do, and how large of an image do you want to cover, which is a rough diameter, and then you just start. Take out the stick and start banging on it until you get a combination of things.
I've got I'm a terrible photographic hoarder. I literally have this my office and my loft and my garage is just full of stuff. I've got masses of projection lenses that I've managed to gather and collect from various places. And some of them I've got like I don't know where the hell I got it from, but it's like they're Kodak projection lenses that are huge. Like the front element's like this big.
Dude.
And I could actually, if I was to steal elements from those and some other lenses that I've got. And if I could make just one lens that's really nice, I could potentially replicate it and make 3 or 4 and share them with people. That's quite appealing for me. But beyond, I've got. Do you know what I picked up the other day? It was in another one of my acquisitive bits. Was an Ilford manual of photography from like 1890 something or other, and it's got some wonderful descriptions of the construction of very early lenses. And so that's great. So I now have this kind of some sense of the pieces that I'm looking for in order to make a functioning lens that could do something. But then the next step is, I don't know, like in my kind of head, I have an idea that I'm just going to create a jig, basically, where I can move different lenses in different distances apart and see what they do to the image projected on a.
That, my friend, is called an optical workbench, and
optical workbench. All right.
Yep. And you can just they actually have them inside. You can buy them from classroom education supply stores because they have them for like high school science classes.
I may look into that, or I might just make it out of wood.
They're kind of cool, actually, because they'll have like a target card, right, with something on it, so you see how sharp things are, and then it's a rail, kind of like a one rail camera. Basically, it is the exact same theory as a one rail 4x5 camera, right? And then it's got little clips on it with different sizes, so you can put optical elements, and then you slide them around, and then you see how it focuses on the card here, and they're because they're classroom supplies, they're pretty cheap. Or you can DIY it. Yeah. I'll send you some links. But you can sometimes get them at surplus places for super, super cheap. But that's basically all you're doing. Think of it as building your own. Or you can take, if you get another like one rail camera, right? It's the same sort of thing. You just a rail and a couple clips and optical elements.
That's basically what I was going to do. Yeah, I was going to use. In fact, I was going to use a slider. I've got a slider outside. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Apologies. So Eric, we can take this offline.
No, it's fine. I mean, some people like this stuff. It's why these guys keep asking me back. It's just so weird.
Eric, I'm waving to you. Yeah. I've got to interrupt because a quarter of this podcast is going to leave us very, very soon, and that quarter being Andrew Bartram. But he's got to go to work. I assume he's got to deliver some groceries or something.
I've got to go and deliver some groceries. Yeah.
Well, literally, how long have we got? 3 minutes, 4 minutes of you?
Or, about that. Yeah, I need to be going in the next 5 minutes, really.
Okay.
5 minutes. Holy hell.
Yeah. I didn't realize what the time was. Time's flown. You see, we've been
yabbering.
Yeah. No,
I think this episode has come under the category of a good chat because we've just gone all over the place, haven't we? I mean, what's this been about? It's been about everything.
Stuff.
Exactly. And I think it's going to continue a little bit longer after Andrew goes. So let's let Andrew have his final thoughts, his thoughts for the day, and also we can do shout outs and things like that before you run away.
Yeah. Well,
Andrew,
do talk about the post I made. Don't do it now because it'll take too long. The post I made earlier about your mystery object. It's a bit like there used to be a program on the TV. The guy with the beard, what was his name? And he used to ride a horse and cart at the beginning and smoke a pipe. And Out of Town, that was what it was called.
Yeah,
I know you mean. Great. Jack somebody.
Oh, the music was great as well.
And he would go in his shed and talk about country stuff. And at the end, he'd bring out an object and say, "Now then," he says, I've got this here. What do you think this was? You know, and so this is exactly. I'm waving this at the camera because people listening aren't going to see it. But I shared a photograph of this object that Simon sent me, and I do know what it is, and I guessed what it was. And there's a few guesses on there, and Eric will read those out in a little while when I've gone, and Simon can talk about it because it kind of fits in with what we began talking to our guest earlier about as well. So do talk about that, and it'll give Simon a plug because he's thinking about going into production with these weird devices, which
I think he should.
Whatever it is, and we will eventually you will learn what it is. So that's it. Simon, I've got one shout out, if that's all right. Can I do a shout out?
Absolutely.
So I was
Of course.
trying to get into the realms of trying to understand how accurate my large format shutters were, and I think I spoke to Simon. What sort of shutter test do you use? And I did a bit of a Google search, and this thing came up: Filmomat photo plug, which first called photographic. It's like an optical sensor that you plug into your phone. There's a free app that you can download, Filmomat app, which you don't need this sensor, but you just have to put your phone up against the shutter, and it listens to the noise of the shutter opening and closing, and gives you a graph. And if you're lucky, you'll be able to work out what the speed is and what the deviation is between different settings. And I just mentioned online that there's this for 30 quid, you can get this little optical sensor that plugs into your phone. Anyway, Steve Jack, I think it was on Instagram or maybe in Facebook, I can't remember now, was very kind. He said he just piped up in a thread and said, "Oh, I've got one of those. I don't use it. Would you like it?" And he said, "I'll stick it in the post tomorrow." And weeks and weeks went by. I said, "Steve," I said, I think it's got lost, you know." He said, "Oh, I did wonder." He said, "I just put a normal stamp on it." So about 2 months later, I get a card through the door saying, "You owe £1.50 in postage," you know. And lo and behold, it was this little light sensor. So I've not used it yet. But Steve, I don't even know if you listen to this. But I'll give him a shout out anyway, because he was kind enough to send me this little optical sensor that I can plug into my iPhone, and it works with the app, the Filmomat Photo Plug app, shutter speed tester.
It's very good, actually, Andrew. I've got one here.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
And to make it work on your iPhone, you need one of those little doodahs, don't you, to plug it in? That's a little doodah there, which I had to buy.
It's very good. I've used that for whenever I get a new camera. And
you have to find a bright light. So you like that? I've got an LED torch.
Just make sure the LED doesn't flicker, because that will cause you some grief at the higher shutter speeds. So you
I did read that it was more accurate at the lower ones. How do I know if it flickers or not?
Wave it around or wave your hand in front of it like that and see if you get it if it starts strobing.
Oh, okay. Well, on that
use it to light yourself on a video camera like you were earlier this morning.
Yeah, and then you'll get the.
That's what it was then. That's because that's some kind of LED thing in this. Okay. Right. Well, there we are. Well done. That's another subject: shutter speed testing. So,
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I'm going to love you and leave you. I've got to go and get changed into my Superman costume.
Very, very quickly, Andrew, so we don't have to remember. How can people look at the things that you do? So all your social media outlets, which are growing by the day at the moment, aren't they?
Well, I'm still on Twitter. I'm very sad about where Twitter's going, but I'm still on Twitter at WarboysSnapper. But I'm more and more despondent with it, despite my best attempts at blocking and muting, and the feeds are just flooded with all sorts of unacceptable stuff. But you can still find me there at WarboysSnapper, or just type my name in. And also on Instagram, WarboysSnapper or Andrew Bartram, you'll find me. You can listen to me interviewing pinhole photographers on the Lensless podcast. Got about 135 episodes to catch up on if you're bored. And that's about it, really.
Excellent. Well, you have a good evening, and it's great that you've been able to stay with us as long as you have.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Well, enjoy the rest of the podcast, and catch up soon. Bye-bye.
Adios.
See you, bud.
And for our listeners now who are still with us, you may realise that there will not be any more notes after this point. Because Andrew is the one that takes all the notes. So if anything actually happens of interest, you want to look it up, then there may be difficulty. So you may be best just pressing pause and listen to it again. That's probably going to be the best way. Well, let's do what Andrew just suggested. So Eric, if you're able to find your way over to the Large Format Photography Podcast Facebook group on Facebook,
is that what that would be?
Exactly. There is a post on there by Andrew somewhere. I've got to say my internet's very slow, largely because we're doing this podcast. No doubt. And so if you can find Andrew's last post or one of his last posts, you'll see a picture of a thing. And I don't know.
Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah,
that's the one. That's it. And and that is a device that I have made, devised, and before we talk about what it actually is, Andrew posted a picture of it, and he then invited people to say what it is they thought it was or what it might be. With the view that,
I like the overhead gizmo drive myself. That's a good answer.
Exactly. So if you wouldn't mind, if you would just go through some of these, all or selected, which it's completely up to you. If you want to make your way through that, because there's quite a few. So
yeah, I can do that. I mean, I think Greg Obst has the best answer, but I'll get to that one. Steve Lloyd cheats, so we're not going to read Steve Lloyd's.
Yeah, you already knew.
Yeah. We have from Bill Orford some sort of strap to hold a tripod. Jimmy Hickford thinks it's a 4x5 sheet film developing reel. Ben Reynolds, wise ass. Ben Reynolds, when he's like properly doing his name. I know you, sir. A tripod leg holder. Tripod. What? Or a multi-angle phone holder. Stuart James Arnold says it's obviously an overhead gizmo drive for a pinhole camera machine. Obviously. Avi. Guy Bellingham, or what do we decide Guy's actual name is? Guy Shrimpton. Guy Shrimpton says, is it for removing horses' hooves out of camera lenses? And Stuart James Arnold wonders whether not you, Simon, are working on the next device for putting them in, as in putting the camera lenses into the horse hooves. Michael Lawrence probably has the right of it. It's a failed attempt at sculpted art, clearly. And then perhaps my favorite answer from Greg Obst, a 3D printed left-handed dual polarity granculaculator in black.
That was definitely the closest answer.
That's definitely the closest one. And I fobbed up his answer. It's actually a 3D printed left-handed dual polarity granculator. I wanted to say that, like, have you ever watched, as kids, the Warner Brothers cartoons with Marvin the Martian? The Martian who's up there and he's always trying to build like a 3D space modulator. I should have said Greg's answer like that. A dual polarity granculator. But alas, I didn't. But I just did. Jason Lane, a failed design for a stepladder. Reminds me of my stepladder. I never knew my real ladder.
That's I gotta say, that's my favorite.
Not being utterly brilliant, he's also kind of funny. Richard Moore, getting snow or mud off your wellies, which I do actually think that would work. William Furness thinks it's a sleigh for squirrels, which it would probably also work. Alex Morrison says it's a miniature bike rack. Billy Sanford wonders if it's an ornate bog roll holder. Can someone explain to me what a bog roll is?
I was just going to say, the way you just said that, it sounded like you don't actually know what that is. Now, Billy Sanford's American, and he knew. So come on, you've not.
It's a bog roll holder.
Toilet roll.
Oh,
a bog is another word for a toilet in the UK.
Got it. Or in this case,
restroom. Oh, there you go.
Restroom. Yeah, because you used to go out back and do it in the bog in the back.
Maybe.
Right. Because I think of bog and I think of swamp. Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, which is a good place to do it if you're going to do it. Bill Orford, mind you, it could be a trust to support us while carrying our gear around.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes into with the bike rack thing. And Tommy Anthony says something to reroll 120 film into shorter rolls, maybe? Question mark.
Okay, well,
not a bad guess. I mean, it does look like it could be something to re-roll 4x5 like sheet film into a 4x5 roll film, or 8x10 sheet film into an 8x10 roll film. A la James Guerin and his crazy ass 8x10 roll film panoramic camera. Yes, Nick, you heard that right. Only James. If you're listening to this, God bless you, sir. We love you for your insanity.
Well, I've got to say, everybody actually managed to fail that. I'm not entirely sure exactly how hard they were trying.
It's not a ground calculator.
Yeah. So
Calculator?
yeah, or a slave for squirrels. And I've got to congratulate Nick here because I sent a photograph of part of this item.
It's one part, in fact.
Yeah,
it was like,
yeah, just a single part, and it might not have even been. It might have been a prototype part. I can't actually quite remember. And actually, you came up with quite a few suggestions about what it could be. And the first one was pretty much on the money, and then it just got ridiculous as it went further down the list. But yeah, what it is a drying rack for 4x5 film, which is not the first time anybody's ever made a drying rack for 4x5 film or even 3D printed one. But what it is, it came out of something a few years ago when I decided I should really make one of these things. And what I felt though was the ones where you drop the film vertically down into, they sort of are relatively easy to load. I mean, they're always going to be a little bit fiddly, but it was relatively easy to load. But what would happen is when you wanted to actually, when you needed it to dry, you would end up with a load of moisture all the way along the bottom edge. And it would just collect there, and it would take much longer to actually get rid of. I mean, you can shake it off and you can do what you like, but that's always going to be a negative about doing that. The alternative is having the film on a diagonal, so that the lowest point is a point, and this is exactly the way that dry plates usually dried. They have a rack that and it basically touches the stuff touches down in about 2 or maybe 3 points, or maybe 4 points, but they sit at a 45-degree angle. But if you do that with film, it flops about all over the place, and there just isn't enough support. So and I was thinking, and not only that, it's actually quite awkward to actually load it as well, even more awkward. So I'm thinking what we needed is the best of both. And you know, I'm still working on the title of this, but I'm currently running with the Tiltomatic 2000 film holder. But I think that might change into something else with the word tilting in it.
I think it's going to be the Gronkulator 2000.
Tilting gronkulator. Yeah.
Tilting Gronkulator 2000.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're done here.
Yeah,
anybody want product naming suggestions? This group has got you.
That's a mic drop right there. I don't know where I've gone with this. So I've come up with something that you drop the film into it in the way you would normally do with a conventional one of these racks, but there's a bit that sticks out, or 2 bits that sticks out, which means that you can push it over and then it sort of falls over, but then it stops. So there's a level of mild peril. Is it going to go onto the floor? Are things going to come out? No, it stops, and it stops in the position that puts the film on a diagonal. It's not 45 degrees. I think it's about 35 degrees actually, which is good enough. I've decided that that's scientifically better than 45 degrees. Don't ask me why I think that. And that's it. So it's easy to load, and it will dry your film quicker. And it looks cool as well, because it does not look like what it is, and that was quite deliberate. So I will be launching that very, very soon. There's a few things I still need to work on, but the good thing about it is was I have, as you've already heard, I've sent one to Andrew, and Andrew's given some great feedback, including the fact that it fits wet plates as well. So it can be used for wet plates, and it can be used for film. So therefore, it can also be used for zebra dry plates,
right, tin types. Yeah,
that's it. You use, and which chemical do you use on that again?
Ammonium thiocyanate.
That's it. I just wanted to hear that again. That's
which is super interesting, because I was looking that up, and it's typically used in I want to say it can be used as a fixer or partially in development. Like it's super interesting, because like, what the hell is that usually, like, where do you get it? And you can get it from photoformularies, the usual like suspects of photochemistry. I was like, but if it's not intended to be used this way, what the hell is it intended to be used for? So it's kind of bizarre that I don't know. I guess I should go watch his video and see like what train of thought led him to be like, I wonder if I dump this in here, what'll happen.
I assume, I might have said this. I can't remember actually, but I assume that this is something that has been done. That he rediscovered rather than discovered for the first time. But he was definitely clear on the fact that it causes white deposits to appear where your silver deposits would normally appear. And God knows what the chemistry is behind that. But then if that is happening, there must be other applications for it as well, right? I mean, you could essentially coat black paper with your standard liquid emulsion, and then use this ammonium thiocyanate process to create all sorts of stuff. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Probably. I mean, the usual process for this is like, you overexpose the snot out of your shot, and then you develop it somewhat normally, and then you you bleach it, expose it to light again, and then redevelop it. Like there's a fairly standard reversal process.
Oh, there is. Okay, I didn't know about
using bleach and stuff, like really powerful bleach. But it's a lot more involved than being just like, here's another bath, this random chemical, and it does a thing, and it's positive.
You know what? This whole, in comparison to some things, that whole ammonium, it's very soluble in water. Or rather, in your HC110 solution. So it's actually really simple process. Although, was it ammonium thiocyanate? Or was it one of the other chemicals that I'm playing with that apparently is really bad for aquatic life? Them, right? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, So disposal of it is something I haven't figured out yet. But I do have a large bottle of stuff that I'm pretty sure it says all over everything. Do not pour this stuff down the drain because you will kill a million fish. So yeah, I don't know what to do with it. Collecting it currently.
Just same thing as with your fixer, right? Like
exactly. Just keep
fixer.
I think
vats.
You might be just about to find out just how expensive those fake tin types really were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I get a visit from the Environment Agency. Yeah,
we need to start to wind things down, and I've got something else to talk about very, very, very briefly, and that is the upcoming Analog Spotlight event in Nottingham, or Nottingham if you're in America. It is going to be.
Thank you. I wasn't sure what you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm helpful that way, and that's in Nottingham at the Non-Such Studios on the 14th and 15th of October, 10 till 5 on both days, and it's a ticketed event. I forget how much tickets are now. They're not cheap, but there's a good reason for that, and that's because there's only a limited number of people who can actually get into the space, and there's obviously covering the cost of the hire and all those things. It's not there to milk money out of people, and there are a lot of people attending, including myself. But as well as myself, and I will take a large format camera there with me. I'll have my Carbon Adventurer in bright orange, just in case you don't spot it, so you'll be able to see where I am. But seeing the glow of my camera. And the other people are going to be going there. I'm going to read out a list here. Some of these people I don't actually know that much about, but they're obviously all to do with analog photography. And you've got Vintage Visual. Now it says Sans Studio. Now the Sans is in capitals, so it could be Sans, but I think it's Sans. Zone Imaging, the ubiquitous James Lane. This Is How I Roll, New Grain App, JFR Film, Alpha Cameras, Chroma Camera, Intrepid are going to be there, Solar Can, and Ilford. Ilford will be there. And this is the second time this event has happened. As I mentioned earlier, it happened in Worcester last year. And Nick came to that one. Nick can't make this one, which is a shame. But we do have another celebrity because Graham of X of the Sunny 16 podcast, who's sort of coming back to the Sunny 16 podcast for one episode only, is going to be there, along with Rachel, who's going to be that's Rachel Brewster Wright of Little Vintage Photography. She's going to be doing some of the talks, and there will be talks. There are going to be workshops. Silverpan Lab are going to be doing a talk. As I mentioned, Rachel will be doing a talk about cyanotypes. There's going to be photo walks. Something called Singles Meet and Greet, which I'm not entirely sure what that is. But yeah, that sounds like it could be interesting all the same. Leicester Lo-Fi are going to be there. and there's a schedule of things going on. all the way through.
Is Sammy the box camera lady going to be there?
If she's part of Leicester Lo-Fi, I don't know. I don't know if she is, but it's.
I don't know. She should be there because she's amazing. She'd be hilarious.
Yeah, you could see that. Yeah. So that is, again, recap on those dates is the 14th and 15th of October. And if you want to have more details of that, just go to just type in analogspotlight.com, and that's the British European, I should say, spelling of analog. So you need to get that E in there.
Weirdos.
The U and an E, I should say. So then again, if you can't spell that properly, the chances are you won't be coming. I don't think you're not gonna fly in from the States, are you? So
might do. It was a good event last year.
But you should. It's going to be amazing if you had the wherewithal.
Yeah. So that's it. That's an event that's happening. Is there anything else that people might wish to get off their chest before we start doing shout outs and things like that? We've had enough, haven't we?
Yeah, not from me. I've said there wasn't much to me before we started, and I've definitely given you everything there is.
Okay. Well, Nick, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the show.
It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. Wonderful to meet you guys, to meet Eric, and to meet Andrew for the first time. And a thoroughly enjoyable experience, enjoyable chat. And do continue to watch my fumblings on YouTube.
And what's the name of your YouTube channel again, just in case people haven't worked it out?
The 120th.
And there's no space in between those two, isn't it? It's all one word.
No spaces.
Yeah. And the 120 is numbers, isn't it? It's
correct.
Yes.
Then
Bang
the
on.
120, then IST. Yeah. You type that into YouTube or Google or anything, it'll pop up.
That's it. And you've on Instagram to some extent, I believe.
I am on Instagram, and I am actually on Facebook, and I am on TikTok, although I am bloody terrible at that. I'm terrible at all of them, if I'm honest. I'm all right.
You need to have your 6-year-old take over your TikTok. That's just all there is to it. It's like the kids do the TikToks, and the rest of us are bullets.
Well, no, apparently not. This is what the reason I've started doing the TikTok thing is because apparently, it's not cool with the kids anymore, and us old folk have started to infest it, and use it for proper purposes, marketing and
as it should be used. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, bring some sensible, seriousness to this social media rubbish. So, have you got any finally? Have you got any shout outs you might wish to give? If should there be somebody that you think might actually listen to the show, hear you say something? Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, big thanks to anybody who ever watches my videos, and apologies that they're not more informative.
Well, actually, let's quickly use this opportunity to because I did mention that James Lane went ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's some other feedback in here as well, and that's the one and only Shane Belkovich. Describes you as a nice gentleman.
I have not met Shane, although that's lovely coming from him, because I think that he is certainly somebody who I would describe as inspiring.
Absolutely.
And there was that documentary that was made. Obviously, he was on the show, and that was terrific. I really enjoyed that episode of the podcast. But there was also a documentary about him, which I had to pay for on Amazon Prime or something. I don't know, but that's cracking. I've watched that maybe 10 times, and it's just terrific. And it's just exactly the sort of guy that you watch or listen to for an hour, and you want to go out and take pictures pretty much straight after. So he's great.
Whenever I think of that video, I'm there thinking live plate.
Yeah.
So, and we've got Greg Obst, and he says that I'm a big fan of the 120th. His presentation is always no nonsense, well researched, hypeless. I'm looking forward to this episode.
And Greg, he said some lovely stuff on some of my videos, and very complimentary. And another one person who is another inspiration, from whom comments are very welcome. But yeah, no nonsense and no bullshit. That's good. I'm content with those summaries of what I do. I'm very happy with that.
So, and then 2 other comments by Ben Reynolds again. And his first comment was, and just for context, this is I posted a screenshot of the 4 of us, including my revamped, renewed webcam, and he says, "Is the next job to buy decent lights, Simon?" He doesn't seem to be too impressed with the noir look that I've got from here.
Moody, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And his final comment is, does this mean this video will go onto YouTube? No, it won't. We don't do that.
It'll be on the TikToks.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna reduce it down to like 15 seconds of us dancing, and then stick on TikTok. So watch out for that.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So Eric, have you got any shout outs?
I mean, always the Heather, because without her, none of this would happen. And also lately, the local photography nonprofit, EBCO East Bay Photography Cooperative, has been wonderful. I've started to teach workshops in Oakland. I just did a workshop on mounting old crazy lenses to do fancy cameras. And then in February, I'll be doing a 2-part workshop on how to build lenses, specifically out of dollar bills, because that's where I started. So I've started to teach workshops with them, and they're very kind of them to let me loose in their playground and abuse their members. So thank you, EBCO, and just all y'all, and Nick for coming on.
Well, I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm not entirely sure which was the correct person to give a shout out to. So it's either Ben Reynolds again, or Jimmy Hickford. Because it was one of those 2 people, I think, and apologies if it was neither of them, it was somebody else, that alerted me to a YouTube video where somebody said somebody had done a YouTube video of a Mamiya, possibly a C330 or something on those lines, and then during this video on YouTube, my lens caps appeared on it. And this gentleman said some very nice things about it, and it turned out that it was none other than our guest today. So
yeah, that video sounds boring, but it did happen.
I mean, you were talking about lens caps, so
yeah,
they were. I bought your lens caps from the Mamiya C330, and they were a very. Oh, did I get them in orange? I don't remember now. Actually,
I think so. I think
I did. I mean, they are. I have your orange lens caps everywhere. Within easy reach, I've probably got 5 or 6 bright orange lens caps. They are iconic.
Was it? Well,
they are iconic.
So I have to thank those two gentlemen for starting this wonderful relationship and friendship that sprung from that day forward. So thank you very much for bringing Nick and I together. So Eric, if anybody wants to get in touch with I'm going to let you pause on that one, because I've got to say thank you.
Do that?
Yeah, I'm going to. Let's just stop there a second. But I just wanted to say thank you to those people that have donated to the show since the last time we had a podcast, and we have 3 people that have donated to us via Ko-fi, KOFI. That's ko-fi.com, and somewhere we're on there as Large Format Photography Podcast. If you wish to buy us a coffee, and the first person on there is Paul Rampant, and what a great name, Paul Rampant, dude. Yeah, and it goes, take this as some encouragement for more. This is where it all goes wrong. I'm reading again. I can't read, but I'm going to try for some more podcasts in the near future. Many thanks for the work you've done in the past. Very inspirational interviews and fun conversations. Cheers. Well, thank you, Ramps.
There we go.
Yeah, Daniel Sandland again is have a coffee for the next podcast. Thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciate that. And finally, Scott McGeeson, love the podcast. Thanks for making great analog photo content and sharing your knowledge and passion. Well, thank you very much, Scott. That's very kind words there. So that's that bit. And if somebody wishes to get in touch with us and send us an email, we haven't actually had any emails for ages, or I just haven't been checking them. It's one or the other. So if eventually you send an email and eventually we look at it, how would they do that, Eric?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask Nick.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Large format photography podcast at gmail.com.
Oh, yes. Nice. Well done. That's like a pro.
Someone has listened to our podcast.
I have. I listened to far too many. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, Eric, outside of this podcast, how can people keep up with anything you might be up to?
Usually I'm really only generally active on Instagram. So it's ERIKHMATHY, which is also my Gmail address as well, at gmail.com or /that at Instagram.
Excellent.
I have a website, but who actually keeps websites up to date?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a 120th website, but I couldn't even tell you what's on there. I should really. Do you know what I've done? I think I've created like the website structure for each of the videos, as if I'm going to like post a little bit of text and a little bit of all the photos that I took on there. But that's all that's there. It's just the structure.
It's a skeleton of it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a website. And it's the website I use for selling things. Yeah, I do. And it's simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, which you can head over there and buy lots of lens caps, loads and loads and loads of lens caps.
Orange ones.
Especially the orange ones, pro orange to be.
And 4x5 drying racks, Simon. Yeah.
Well, that's right. At some point, they will be on there. And I need to work on that pretty damn quick. There's a couple of
gronkulators.
Yeah, the
tilting grogulator, yeah.
2000.
2000.
Yeah, it's got that 2000 in there somewhere, hasn't it?
Yeah, because it ends at 2000. Making a radio ad.
It's the future.
Exactly.
And so that's going to get on there once I've done a few more tweaks to it. I'm on Twitter still as Simon4. And that one, Blue Sky. I think I'm down as Forster UK, which is my brand name for all my things that I make. And we're in the on Facebook, in particular in the Large Format Photography Podcast Facebook group, and Nick's in there as well somewhere. I don't think he's ever posted anything.
I hide in Facebook groups. I'm terrible.
Yeah. So if you have any questions for Nick, you can put them into our Facebook group, and Nick will answer them. Although we don't actually know what he's going to be called, so we don't actually know what
that might be a step too far, Simon. I didn't say I'd answer anything, but you're welcome to ask questions.
This is it. So if you can work out the alias that Nick's in our group, then you can ask him a question. Otherwise, he may make himself known, hopefully, and you can say hello to him. And
depends on the questions. If you make them easy.
Very, very true. Very true. So, and so that's it. So, thank you for being with us again, Nick. It's been absolutely.
Thank you for having me. It's been super fun. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
That's it. And thank you, Eric, and thank you, Andrew, who's gone. And we'll be back. Who knows? We'll certainly be back again this year. Anyway, so we seem to be on a bit of a roll now. So hopefully, you'll listen to us again next time. So, goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.
There you go. Bye. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah, you need to prep me for that. I didn't know that was coming.
I didn't prep you for the email address. You nailed that. So, I mean, I don't know.
So I hear you guys fumble over that on every single video, though. So,
Yeah, true.
I'm screaming at my phone at that point. I'm like, that's gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly. But Simon didn't cock up your name, and that's just like there's a first for everything.
How do you mean?
You didn't cock up my name, Nick Davis.
Oh,
I mean, that's
yeah.
It's
we just talked about him. You'd struggle to make a mess of that, surely.
Yeah, it's too Anglo-Saxon. That is
exactly.
I can't get that.
Yeah. So when we have the zebra guy on, though, you can just like really just like
nobody knows how to pronounce that.
No.
Yeah, it's probably something really simple like Nick. Like it looks.
I
really
think. Do you know what?
complex.
It could well be. Yeah, like the Romaine. Oh,
to be
Slovenian, I
like-
think he is. Yeah.
Nice place. I've been there.
Yeah.
It's lovely place.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
never been.
we never mentioned your Stenopeka. Well, that might.
Jesus Christ! I've invalidated my sponsorship deal. It's
Right.
excellent.
Got it back.
Right. Well, it's tea time over here, and I think it will be.
Go for a cuppa.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I've been misapplying that term. I've been using cuppa for coffee, and
No.
I've been made aware that
Ooh.
cuppa is purely for tea.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
very
And I'm
much
just
so.
going to keep using cuppa for coffee and bollocks, not bollocks, just so I can make Simon twitch.
well, Nick said it perfectly. So I hope you were taking note.
Said which?
You said bollocks in there, and
Bollocks. I did say bollocks.
Yeah.
Bollocks.
I thought I was very well behaved, actually.
You were. I think I've only got 4 fucks from Eric today.
There was a shit from me, definitely.
Oh, no,
I
yeah,
do that.
That I ain't got a problem with that. I ain't got a problem with F's either, but it's more of a case of I think if some people might listen to it in the car and they may have other people with them and they might be only half listening, or they've got headphones on or whatever, and then they don't, and then they hear something like that and it's embarrassing and so on. So I just I mean, those of us that have got a vocabulary can manage to say words without using those words, but Eric is American,
Wow.
So
Hey now.
See,
Simon Riddle's kid came on and was swearing up a storm. So I don't want to hear from you about it's just
He
the
did,
American
didn't he?
thing. That kid
Do you
was
know what-
dropping them. So
there are some open-minded people, Simon, who would believe that fuck is actually a part of a vocabulary.
yeah.
One must not fear words, Simon. They are just words.
yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to disappear. Well, thank you very much. I'll get this edited pretty quick. It's how fast Andrew can get his notes done. He does the notes, I do the editing, and we'll get it out. Oh, that's what we need. We need a cover photograph for the podcast, and it could be a picture of you. It could be a picture of something that you've done, a picture of an object that means something to you. I mean, it could be a logo, but we need something from you that will fit with how the logo works. So it's a square format, and it's got LFPP down the left-hand side, down the right-hand side, and that will be in either black or it will be in white, depending on what the background color is. So if you give me something that's somewhere that's both, or it's a mid-gray, it will be rejected because I can't use it.
Out of hand.
Yeah. So
Okay.
If you can come up with something and drop me, you got my email anyway. haven't
I
you? So,
do, yeah. Well, I'll come up with something. Yeah.
That'll
I
be
don't know.
cool.
What I'll do is I'll probably spend the next 2 or 3 hours trying to think of something that isn't just a picture of my face, and then I'll go fuck it and take a picture of me like this. And send that to you.
I think I should
put large podcast on your tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So that's all right. Yeah. You all right with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Do
good.
that then. All right.
Okay, chaps. Been great to
Brilliant.
talk to you both.
Thanks very much, guys.
Bye bye.
Have a great rest of the day, fellas.
Cheers.
Bye bye.